This is Bagram Airfield in Afghanistan. For over 20 years, it was the largest U.S. military base in the country and home to 12,000 American troops. But when the U.S. left Afghanistan in August 2021, they left behind more than just an unfinished withdrawal. They left behind a community of people who were reliant on them for everything from access to healthcare to education to clean water. And now they're struggling to survive? So let's head over to Bagram to see what life is like there right now. Welcome to Life Noggin. The U.S. built Bagram Airfield in 2003 during the early days of the war in Afghanistan. At its peak, the base covered a massive 400 acres, and had a 12,000-foot long runway. It also had everything else the soldiers stationed there needed to function, including living quarters, medical facilities, schools, and even a Starbucks. But while the base was designed to be a military installation, it quickly became more. As the war dragged on and the U.S. failed to leave, the base grew to encompass a small city with homes for up to 30,000 Afghan civilians who worked on the base or whose jobs depended on it. These people had little access to basic services, so the U.S. military stepped in to provide for them. In addition to schools for their kids and medical care for everyone, the Americans also brought in supplies to create one of the largest bazaars in the country. This bazaar offered a wide variety of goods and services to not just the people living on the base, but also those in the surrounding communities. All in all, Bagram Airfield became a hub of activity for both military and civilian life. But in 2021, the U.S. decided to withdraw from Afghanistan. And as they prepared to leave, they had to decide what to do with Bagram Airfield. On July 2nd, they announced that they would be turning the base over to the Afghan government. But this handover wasn't as simple as it sounds. The U.S. military didn't just pack up and leave. Instead, they spent the next 3 months dismantling their operations and transferring as much of their equipment and supplies as possible to other bases in the region. This process was complicated by the fact that the U.S. was still actively engaged in combat with the Taliban and other militant groups. So, in addition to worrying about losing their equipment, the Americans also had to worry about their personnel. In the end, though, they managed to complete the withdrawal without any major incidents. But once the U.S. military was gone, Bagram Airfield was a shadow of its former self. The bustling bazaar was reduced to a few small shops. The schools were closed and the medical facilities were overwhelmed with patients who could no longer get the specialized care they needed on the base. And now the residents of Bagram are struggling to make ends meet. We spoke to some of the residents of Bagram to hear their stories firsthand. Before the U.S. withdrawal, life in Bagram was relatively peaceful. The presence of the military had brought stability to the area and the people felt safe. There was a sense of normalcy that allowed them to go about their daily lives without fear of violence or instability. However, since the departure of the U.S. military, the situation has taken a turn for the worse. The security situation has become increasingly volatile, and the people are now living in fear. The Taliban's return to power has brought back memories of their previous regime when they ruled Afghanistan with an iron fist. The people of Bagram remember all too well the human rights abuses and the suppression of basic freedoms that occurred under the Taliban's last regime. Now they are fearful of what the future holds for them and their families. The impact of the U.S. withdrawal from Bagram has been devastating. The loss of the American military has created a power vacuum that has been filled by the Taliban. The people of Bagram are now living under the oppressive rule of the Taliban, and their basic rights and freedoms are being stripped away. The once vibrant community has been reduced to a shadow of its former self. The schools and hospitals that were supported by the U.S. military are no longer functioning, leaving the people of Bagram without access to basic services. The economy has also been severely impacted with the closure of the bazaar and the loss of jobs that were dependent on the base. The people of Bagram are now struggling to survive as they try to rebuild their lives in the aftermath of the U.S. withdrawal. The situation is dire, and the people need urgent help to recover from the devastation that has been left in the wake of the U.S. departure. Hey, we made it to the end of another episode. If you like this one, don't forget to hit that like button and subscribe if you haven't already. It's me. This has been Life Noggin. Don't forget to keep on thinking.